What's up, guys? It's Collin Coates from Built2Wander. We're out in Colorado with our brand new 2022 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 equipped with the Xtreme Recon Package. Today, we're going to do a vehicle walk around, share some of our thoughts and impressions of the Jeep, talk about the Xtreme Recon Package and what all comes with that. We're also going to do a build preview of what you can expect to see when we get this thing prepared for the 2022 SEMA Show with 3D Off-Road. Before we dive in, do me a quick favor, like this video, subscribe to the Driving Line channel, and let's get after it. So you're probably wondering how we ended up with another 392. So about a year ago, we had picked up our first Sarge Green Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392. We had plans to do a big build with 3D Off-Road. We were gonna display it at the 2021 SEMA Show, and then things kind of fell through. The vendor we were gonna display with pulled out of the show due to concerns with COVID, and our entire program was delayed a year. Fast forward, we had a crazy deal on a brand new 392 fall in our lap, this time with the Xtreme Recon Package, and I could not pass it up. I was excited to see what the XR was all about, and so here we are. We've got a brand new 392 XR, and we've got similar build plans. We're gonna kind of talk about those here in a little bit, but I wanted to fill you in with how we ended up with this thing in the first place before we start walking around it. So let's go ahead and start with the most obvious thing on the XR, 35-inch tires from the factory. I'm so excited that Jeep finally offers a 35-inch tire from the factory. The Jeep just looks so much more proportional with that 35-inch tire, and I would venture to say most folks who buy a 392 or any other Wrangler equipped with the Xtreme Recon Package are probably going to leave it stock. With that 35-inch tire setup, not only does it look a lot better, I think a 35-inch tire can take you all over the place, get you through a lot of different trails. We've proven that with our Ford Bronco out in Moab and on some trails here in Colorado. Now with the 35s come a more aggressive 17x8 beadlock capable wheel. It's a bummer though, as we learned with our previous 392, you gotta go through Mopar and order the actual beadlock ring. So Jeep doesn't provide it from the factory. And I really wish it did, because that's something that I know we use all the time on our builds. Adds a lot of functionality when you're airing down and you get into those tougher trails. To fit the 35, they really didn't make too many changes with suspension. They added probably about an inch of bump, both front and rear. So the vehicle still sits about 2 inches taller than a factory Wrangler and about an inch taller than the Rubicon. So not any taller from the factory. Really happy with the overall ride characteristics, both on-road and off-road. It still handles really well, still offers what I feel like is the best riding Wrangler from the factory, especially with all that power at your fingertips. So with that 35-inch tire comes a little extra weight, a little extra width. Jeep addressed that by adding these fender extensions. So it just gives the vehicle that full coverage over the tire, allows Jeep to stay compliant with tire coverage laws. They also added spacers to the rear taillights. My guess is it allows the blind spot monitoring system to still work with the wider track width. They also added a heavy duty tire carrier here in the back. The nice thing about this is it supports that extra weight of the 35, but it also lifts the tire up so there's no clearance issues with the rear bumper. You could probably fit up to a 37-inch tire on this heavy-duty tire carrier. Feels really stout. There is a provision for an antenna mount for your CB radio or your race radio. I think it's nice that Jeep thought through that. Gives the owner a little bit of flexibility when they start to accessorize this thing. Because the tire's a little wider, they had to add a spacer here for the rear camera so you can still see behind you real well. So we've talked about wheels, tires, suspension, and some of these accessories that you can see. Now let's talk about some of the additional aspects of that Xtreme Recon Package that aren't so obvious. Starting with performance. The Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 comes from the factory with a top speed of 100 miles an hour. The 392 XR actually has a top speed of 110 miles an hour. I can't say that I've tested that out yet. I don't know that there'll ever be a reason to. Jeep added 456 gears to the XR package to compensate for that 35-inch tire. When you're rolling down the highway doing 70, the RPMs are a little bit higher than the previous 392. It doesn't bother me much, and all that power on the low end is still there. This thing just gets up and goes. It's a ton of fun to drive. So, you know, I'm really happy that Jeep addressed the gears. I also think if you wanted to do some minor modifications to this thing, throw a 37-inch tire under there, you really won't have to worry about gearing. There's plenty of gear there, and no reason why you couldn't do that. So I did notice underneath that there's actually a steel oil pan. Our previous 392 had this aluminum oil pan that hung way down. In fact, I was a little concerned when we ran the Rubicon last year that we might damage that. When we went in for our first oil change after the Rubicon Trail last year, our oil drain bolt had been rounded off. You could see that it was drug on rocks. So don't think that's gonna be an issue with this new oil pan. It's definitely higher clearance. I'm really happy that Jeep addressed that. So now that we discussed all the components that are included in the Xtreme Recon package, there is that question, is it worth it? I think at the time that we ordered this vehicle, the XR package added about $4,000 to the total ticket. Now, for most people, I would say it absolutely is worth it. There's really nothing you need to do to this vehicle to make it capable or go out, hit some tougher trails. I am a firm believer that with the right 35-inch tire, you can go out and do way more than you could probably even imagine. So I do believe that the 35s add a lot of functionality. I like that Jeep addressed the gears and the heavy-duty tire carrier. They really did make it as functional as it looks. And speaking of looks, like I said, it looks so much more proportional and it just feels more well-rounded. So I really do think that the Xtreme Recon package adds quite a bit of bang for the buck. Now for me, given that we're gonna tear this thing apart, take all these factory parts off it for the new build, it might not make as much sense, but my thoughts are that we can probably sell most of those components and get every dollar back out of it. You know, I would believe that the factory axles with the 456 gears are gonna be worth a little bit more money than the factory Rubicon axles. I think those 35s and the wheels will be worth a little bit more, and we can sell that heavy duty tire carrier and some of these additional accessories. So I really do think we'll be able to recoup that cost. And honestly, I was excited to get my hands on the Xtreme Recon to test it out for myself and to figure out if it makes sense or not. But I will say, after driving this thing for 1,000 miles, hitting some light trails, running around town in it, I love it. I think it's an excellent Jeep. I'm super pumped that Jeep finally offered one with 35s, and I'd have to believe that it's the most capable Wrangler ever produced. So the whole idea behind this build is to create something that's capable of going fast through the desert, do all the technical rock crawling out here in Colorado and places like Johnson Valley, California, Sand Hollow, Moab, Utah. So, you know, that kind of draws from that Ultra 4 theme. And we're gonna start with wheels and tires. We plan to run a set of 42-inch Nitto tire trail grapplers. I've been really excited to get my hands on a set of those. Been really wanting to try them out. Haven't run anything bigger than a 40, and that's kind of what we're designing this build around. So it's definitely probably overkill, but I'm excited nonetheless. Now with that 42-inch tire, we're gonna add a set of 20-inch KMC Mesa wheels. We actually got a street wheel that's 9 inches wide, had them customized to be a true beadlock wheel. The nice thing is that 9-inch wide wheel on a 13.5-inch wide tire will give that sidewall plenty of room to flex. The next area we had to address was axles. We need something extremely heavy duty to support the weight of those 42-inch trail grapplers, especially knowing that we want to go fast and crawl rocks. So we teamed up with Eric Miller. Eric's a two-time King of the Hammers champion, and he knows a thing or two about this style of build that we're trying to achieve. And so he's gonna build us a set of Spider Tracks fabricated 9-inch axle housings. They're very similar to what he runs under his King of Hammers Ultra 4 buggy, and they are gonna be plenty strong to support the weight of that 42-inch tire. So next is suspension. We've teamed up with Built. We're running their double triangulated 4-link rear suspension with a triangulated 3-link up front. With that 4-link setup in the rear, we had to get rid of the factory gas tank. So we've got a new fuel tank from Built that will be mounted right behind the rear axle. But the nice thing is that 4-link rear suspension will hold that axle true. So when you're actually, you know, crawling or hauling down the desert, it really holds that axle centered under the Jeep. So as the suspension cycles, the axle stays true to the Jeep, and it'll allow this thing to just handle a lot better at high speed, which is what we plan to do. So to complete that Built suspension system, we'll be adding a set of aluminum control arms from RockJock with their Johnny joints. We're also gonna add a set of RockJock's anti-rock sway bars both in the front and rear. And finally, we'll run a dual or triple rate normal coil spring. We're not going to do coilovers like we did on the Triton JL, but we are going to add a set of triple bypass shocks from Bilstein along with some hydraulic Bilstein bump stops. So the nice thing about those bypass shocks is it will allow us to maintain control through faster sections, still have plenty of travel when we're crawling rocks, but we can adjust the compression and rebound zones accordingly and really dial in the ride of this thing. And I think because we want to go fast, I really feel like that will add a ton of benefit in just how well this thing performs both on road and off. Now, in terms of armor, we are going to run Moto built armor all the way around this thing. So we've got a set of their Highline fenders that'll give us plenty of clearance for the 42-inch tires and still allow us to keep this thing relatively low. We're adding a set of their frame mounted rock rails, protect the rocker panels on this thing when we're crawling on rocks. We've got their front and rear bumpers. We're doing the frame chop front bumper. I believe it's called the Tomahawk front bumper, and it looks really sick, really aggressive styling. The whole idea is to really keep this thing as minimal as possible, minimize the accessories, keep it as lightweight as we can, and Moto Built's armor allows us to do that. So we've got wheels and tires covered. We discussed the axles that are going under this thing and some of the armor we plan to add from Moto Built. I do think it's worth noting that we're gonna have to address steering. So we'll run PSC Motorsports hydraulic ram assist and their XD big bore box. That will allow us to turn those 42-inch tires effortlessly in the rocks, and then driving down the road, steering should feel nice and tight. We'll also be adding a set of 1350 series Adams drive shafts that'll connect those front and rear axles to the transfer case. So drivetrain will be really dialed. We'll also add a couple of functional accessories. You know, we're gonna plan to run a soft top on this thing with the OEM half doors. We'll have some PRP seat covers inside to keep the interior really nice. And then on the front and rear, we'll have lighting covered. Baja Designs, we're gonna run a set of their LP6 lights up front. We'll have some S2 flush mount reverse lights in the back, and then rock lights underneath. That way we can go out, do some night runs. You know, that's one of the things that we look forward to doing when we're out at events. Just a lot of fun being under the moonlight and hitting the trail. So Baja Designs will allow us to do that with their lighting. And then we'll also add a worn winch and some Factor 55 recovery equipment so that we can perform a recovery or be prepared to help others in that event. Guys, thanks for following along and allowing me to introduce you to our brand new 392 Xtreme Recon. Stoked to have kind of walked around the build with you guys, share what that Xtreme Recon package entails, and share some of the build plans that we have for this thing for the 2022 SEMA Show. I seriously can't wait to bring this thing to life down at 3D Off-Road with Matt Thompson. This is a dream build for me, and I'm just so stoked to share it with you guys. So keep an eye out on Driving Line's YouTube. Keep an eye out on our social media channels at Built2Wander. We will definitely share plenty of progress with you guys as this thing unfolds. And drop me a comment below. Let me know what you think of the XR package. Let me know what you think of our build plans. If you have any questions, I'd be stoked to answer those for you. And as always, hit the like button if you did, and subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, wander on.
Thanks for watching Driving Line. If you guys like this video, consider subscribing to our channel so you'll never miss any of the content we create here. Whether you're into trucks, Jeeps, imports, domestic vehicles, or anything in between, we are here to fuel your passion. So hit that subscribe button and we'll see you guys next time.